Today we are on a curiosity voyage to Hawkins, Indiana, which is actually Jackson, Georgia. And not just Jackson, we toured around the greater Atlanta area for a week in March to see as many Stranger Things filming locations as we could find.
We saw Hawkins High School, the arcade, the Wheeler House, and the Byers house, as well as Melvald's, the Hawkins Public Library, and Hawkins Lab.
Plus Starcourt Mall and the Creel House and more. We even took a private tour of Hopper's cabin and got to see a few locations being used for season 5, which was in production while we were down south.
Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Laura.
And this is Film Trail.
The first location we have to discuss is the school.
The school is really important for us to see because it's been slated for demolition for a while now, and we knew that as soon as production was done with it, it was going to be demolished. So we were really hoping that we would make it down there before they were done filming at the school so that we could still see it. And we were able to. Security was there, so we weren't able to go around the property, but we could take pictures from the road and we were able to see all the things that we wanted to see mostly, except for the interior, of course. But getting to see the exterior of the school was still awesome.
Yeah, it's still painted Hawkins High School because they were still in production. It was just really exciting to be there on the grounds, even if we couldn't go and see the gym, see the tiger mural. I really wanted to see that stuff, but just being at the school was amazing. Hawkins Lab, we didn't get very close to because they were actually filming something else there, not Stranger Things, something else was being filmed there. So they had a security guard right out front and we couldn't get very close, but it's such an iconic spot that just getting to see the lab from afar and take some pictures and video was exciting enough for us.
And that's another location that is also slated for demolition. I can't believe they're going to tear down all of these great, important filming locations.
It's a travesty.
It's a travesty, but it does happen. So I'm glad that we were able to see it while it was still up.
And we spent an afternoon touring around downtown Hawkins, which is Jackson, Georgia.
Yeah, it was great. We got to see the space used for Melvald's, Radio Shack, the public library. What else did we get to see?
We got to see the Hawk Theater. We got to see
the alley where Jonathan and Steve get into their fight.
I was especially excited to see rental solutions. I love how 80s and vintage that building looks, that logo.
Also, we saw the Surfer Boy Pizza van, which was really cool. That was parked out front of one of the businesses. The owner has the van out front and he drives it back and forth to work, which is pretty cool. There are a lot of businesses in downtown Jackson that are all about Stranger Things. You have Stranger Things tours, you have gift shops,
There's an escape room.
There's an escape room. There's also just merchandise at a lot of the stores around. There's an ice cream parlor that has some merch, and they also happen to have the prescription sign from Melvald's. And also in a little alcove in front of another shop, you have the Radio Shack sign from the series. There's so much Stranger Things everywhere in that town. They really lean into it, embrace it, which is great. We had a great time wandering around and feeling like we were actually in downtown Hawkins.
Another spot that was really exciting was the Palace Arcade and Family Video location. That spot is not slated for demolition as far as we know, but it looks like it could be demolished at any time. The windows are broken, it's all boarded up. It's kind of a shell of what it once was.
It really is. And you can look in through the windows and see, especially in the arcade, the floor and everything that was still there, but it is in really rough shape. There's a lot of broken glass. We actually went twice to check it out, and the second time we went, there was even more broken glass. So it's definitely seen better days, and there's not much left of it, but it does still have that exterior paint, which is really cool.
Yeah. Another place that really leans into the fan experience is Bradley's Big Buy. That's the grocery store where Elle shoplifts the Eggos and breaks the front door as she leaves dramatically. But in that grocery store, it's so great because they will talk to you about the show. They'll talk about filming there. They've got paraphernalia lined up on top of the freezer section. The Eggos are still in almost the same place where they were in the show. They really want the fans to have a good time there.
They have t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now. It's Bradley's Big Buy. And on the back it says Stranger Things happen at Bradley's Big Buy. And they really do lean into it, and it's so great that they do. We got to go see Benny's Burgers, which is actually Tiffany's restaurant in real life. They were closed the day that we were able to get over in that area, but we were able to park and look around, and you can see that it looks exactly the same as it did in the show. And you can go around the side of the building and see where Elle came through the woods and where Benny was taking out the garbage.
And I actually put my phone up to the window of the door and got a little bit of a glimpse of the inside, which looks still pretty much the same as it did in the show.
Yeah, it really does.
One place that does not look the same as it did in the show is the Hawkins Police Station.
The Hawkins Police Station doesn't even look recognizable. They took that Hollywood money and they revamped the entire building, so the exterior looks nothing like it does in the series. Nothing.
No, it's about the same height as the building in the show, and you can kind of tell that it's the same place, but it's just so different.
We also went to the trailer park that's used in season 4. That is where Eddie lives and Max lives.
It's where Chrissy died.
Where Chrissy died. There is a lot of action that takes place at that trailer park. And we went over, and compared to other people's videos from even just like 6 months ago, it was so different. They obviously took the Hollywood money and they made a lot of improvements. They repaved everything. They have driveways. They added a lot more trailers in. So it was a lot different looking, but we were still able to see where Eddie's trailer was and where Max's trailer was, even though it was new structures in those places.
Speaking of dwellings, we went to see so many of the houses featured in this show, starting with the Henderson house.
The Henderson house is the first one that you come upon when you're going into the neighborhood where all the other houses are located, and it's up on the hill, and it's so recognizable when you drive in. The neighborhood does have a specific feel to it, all the houses being built around the same time, and so having them all in the same neighborhood makes sense. If they shot the houses in all different neighborhoods but they were supposed to be in the same neighborhood, it would be jarring and strange. So it makes sense that, you know, the kids are all friends because they live in that same neighborhood, and it makes sense that Nancy and Barb would be friends as well because they just live a few houses down from each other.
Steve's house is located much further out. It's in a completely different part of town.
It makes sense that Steve's house isn't in that neighborhood because his parents have more money. The house is a bit grander, and so it's located outside of the traditional suburban little cul-de-sacs that the other kids live on.
The Hargrove house comes in later in the series in season 2, and that's where Max and Billy live.
The Byers house in the show, it definitely feels like it's not anywhere near the other kids' neighborhood. It's definitely further out in more rural area, and that really is how it is in person as well. It's down a dirt road, and it has that more rural feel. It's set way back, so you can't see it quite as well from the road either.
Yeah, you really have to try to be able to see it, but we were really excited to drive by and catch a glimpse of Joyce's car in the driveway. That was so exciting to me, and we didn't even know that we had seen it. I just kind of held my phone up and took some video as we drove by and looked at my videos after and said, oh my gosh, I don't know if it was really Joyce's car or if the current owners put a car out there that looks just like Joyce's car, but we were really excited to see that.
Yeah, it was great. And it is feasible because you think, okay, they're done with the Byers residence in Hawkins, but there is rumor that this new season is going to have either flashbacks or time travel. We know that Castlebyers is going to be featured again, and so
stay tuned. We'll show you where that location
we will.
is.
But therefore, it's possible that they're going to use the old Byers house again, and so Joyce's car being there makes sense.
The Creel house, it's just as iconic in person. It's really beautiful.
It's a gorgeous house. It is really stunning, just as stunning as it is on the show. The landscaping is impeccable. It's a gorgeous residence.
On our last full day in the Atlanta area, we actually got to take a private tour of Hopper's cabin. We didn't know if we were going to be able to see Hopper's cabin while we were there. We knew that Sleepy Hollow Farm does allow people to come in and take tours occasionally, but you have to call them and you have to ask. And so we called the week before we went to Georgia and talked to someone, and they said, yeah, we're not really going to do that next week, so sorry. But he did say, call back next week and ask. And so I called back on Tuesday and they said, sure, what time do you want to come? So we got to see Hopper's Cabin, which was amazing.
They have you pay a small fee for a tour. It's very reasonable cost to be able to do it, and it's worth it because if you do the private tour, you can go in, take your time. They tell you a little bit about the filming there. They shared that the crew had just been there a couple of weeks before doing some filming at Hopper's Cabin. So we were able to take as many photos and videos as we wanted around the outside. We were able to go inside and see all of the ways that they've made it look exactly like it does in the show.
Yeah, they have it decorated so similar to the show. It's obviously not the same decor, it's not the same furniture, but they got as close as they could to really retain that feeling of Hopper's Cabin in the show.
Yeah, so you get to see the trees where the tripwire was, you get to see the shed that is used, and actually we were the only ones on that tour, so it was just us. So it really was a private tour. I think that was probably the highlight of our trip. And the great thing is, also on that property is where they filmed the pumpkin patch, and they really did dig a trench on that property. They still have the sign for the pumpkin patch. They let you take a little ride over and see it. So it was actually getting to see a couple of locations in one. So it was definitely worth the price of admission. If you want to take a tour or do the escape room, call them and make a reservation.
But you don't have to make a reservation to see Starcourt Mall.
But it is going to be demolished eventually. So the mall is empty right now. You're not able to go inside the mall, but you're able to see the outside, particularly the entrance that was used in filming, and it looks exactly the same. It just doesn't have the Starcourt Mall neon on the top.
Yeah, other than that though, you're at Starcourt Mall.
And I'm glad that, again, it was still standing when we went so that we could see that little bit of film history.
Yeah, anyone who wants to see these locations, especially the ones that are slated for demolition, get there and see them because it is a great experience.
It is.
Also a great experience is going to visit the quarry. The quarry is where they pulled Will's body out of the water. It's where the bullies made Mike jump off the ledge and Elle saved him. The quarry was a really interesting location to see because most people, when we've watched videos in the past for filming locations for Stranger Things, haven't gone over to the quarry.
The city of Atlanta has recently built a park around the quarry. They've actually filled the quarry with far more water. It's really, I think, a lot different than it was just a couple of years ago, and that might be why we were able to see it. Maybe some people hadn't gone to see it because I think at that point it was still operating as a quarry and it was off limits. But now you can actually go to the park, you can walk all down along the side of the quarry, you can come up to the top and you can look down over it. It does look a lot different because obviously it's been filled in with water more, but it's also very obviously the location that they used. Another location that we visited was Brimborn from season 3. That's where Billy crashes his car and then he is pulled down into the guts of this abandoned building and is inhabited by the Mind Flayer.
It was a really great location to see because someone parked a blue car that looks just like Billy's out front. So again, the area is embracing the fandom. They're allowing the fans to have that experience of going by the Brimborn Steelworks building and seeing Billy's car outside. We
also went to another season 3 location, which is the Hawkins Community Pool. That's where Billy works as a lifeguard. We went to Atlanta in March, so the pool wasn't open, and they were actually doing some work on the building. They were repainting the blue trim, but we were able to walk around the property and see the pool and see the structure, and it looks exactly as it does in the show. There are 2 cemeteries in the show. The first one is used for Will's funeral. It's actually right around the corner from the Byers residence. It's a very tiny cemetery, and it was very clear where Will's grave was, so we were able to go and see that location under the tree. We were also able to see where Nancy and Jonathan sit behind a little gate in the back of the cemetery where they're discussing what's going on and whether or not this is actually Will who's being buried.
The second cemetery in the show is where Billy was buried. That was filmed at Stone Mountain Cemetery.
Fans flocked there, obviously. From the place where Steve had parked the car down at the bottom, and then they go up and Max is sitting at the top at Billy's grave. There's a well-worn path leading up from that road, a well-worn spot on the side of the road People obviously go there a lot, and they've worn a little path up to the grave. And then when you get up there at Billy's gravesite, there's a little sort of makeshift monument to him. And
yeah, it has flowers and little things people have left, and even a replica of Billy's license plate as like a little grave marker kind of thing.
It was so cool. And then in the space where Max sits on the ground and is talking to Billy, that space is all worn down too, because so many fans have been sitting there or standing there to do their pictures and their videos and everything. So that was a great location to visit. It was really cool.
Yeah. While we were in Stone Mountain to visit the cemetery, we also went to Stone Mountain Park.
Yeah, the park was actually used for a lot of filming. One of the main parts of Stone Mountain Park that's used is the railroad tracks that go through the park. It's for the Stone Mountain Railroad. It's just a little train that goes kind of through the park, but there are scenes where the kids are on the tracks, they're walking, and then there's another scene where Dustin and Steve are walking when they're trying to lure Dart out. So we wanted to go and check it out. So we picked a trail that was close to the train tracks, and we went in and we got some footage on the tracks, which was really awesome.
Well, we almost just got hit by a train.
Not really.
Not really, but we were on the tracks and the train came through, so we jumped off to the side and got out of the way.
And then we also knew from recent photos online that they had just wrapped up doing a lot of filming for Castle Byers and the Upside Down in that section of the park. So we were able to walk on the trails and use the photos from online to match up the trees, and we were able to see exactly where Castle Byers was. And they still had a lot of the wood used for Castle Byers just laying on the ground. Yeah, they had all of these sticks piled up, and you could see that they obviously were what had been used to construct Castle Byers.
And that leads us into some of the season 5 locations that we got to see. The first was the farm.
We don't really know what the farm is used for, but we had seen pictures that people had posted online that they were doing some filming at this farm. And so we located where it was, and we drove by and just took a little bit of video, because obviously it'll be something in the new season. So we just wanted to have that footage for when the show comes out, and we can match it up and see what's going on there.
And the one that I was most excited to see, we had seen pictures of this before we went down to Georgia, the radio station. I was so psyched the first time we drove over there. We went more than once. It's such a great location. They actually built the structure of this radio station, so I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty big location. They have the WSQK sign, they have the base of the radio tower, and supposedly they're going to CGI more of the radio tower in, but it was so cool to drive by and get to stop on the side of the road and just take a little bit of pictures and video just to see it in person.
Yeah, it's up on a hill, so when you drive by you can see it. It's an easy location to see right from the road. Again, they had a lot of security on the premises when we were there, and they had been filming there for quite some time already, and it seems like it's going to be a pretty big location in season 5, so we were psyched to see that.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us on this Stranger Things tour. To start planning your trip to see some of these locations, check out the information in our video description. And while you're here, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can follow along on our further adventures to visit filming locations for things like Ozark, Cobra Kai, The Gilded Age, and more.
It's good to be a nerd.
It is good to be a nerd.